Bought it on eBay, drunk, and I look back in my drunken stupor and I bid 43,000 quid for this car.
Hi, it's Will from Practical Performance Car. I'm here with Kieran Morn and his rather special car. Now, I don't know, a lot of people might think the Audi Quattro is the first four-wheel drive road car. There are actually a couple before that, but the very first was this, wasn't it?
Yeah. This is a 1971 Jensen FF. It won Car of the Year in 1966. Which is pretty bonkers if you think the mid-60s.
Yeah.
And this was a 330 horsepower four-wheel drive car with anti-lock brakes.
And although it looks like an Interceptor, it's not an Interceptor. It's
No.
slightly longer, and the FF stands
Well, we probably need to move, don't we, and just show them the extra vent.
Well, we can show them that.
Yeah.
So the FF stands for Ferguson Formula, doesn't it? Because
It does.
it was actually Harry Ferguson of tractor fame who designed the four-wheel drive system, which seems quite unlikely.
But, well, he did make four-wheel drive tractors.
Yeah.
But he was passionate about the fact that the world should have four-wheel drive. Ferguson themselves also converted another number of cars, police cars, Zephyrs, Mustangs, there's a Ford Capri.
Oh, there is, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a 3-litre Ford Capri.
So it's a Chrysler 6.3 V8,
Yes,
is it?
it's a 330 with a torque flight, and obviously then
It's a three-speed auto.
3-speed auto with the Ferguson box that then has the second prop shaft, and then there's the front of the car is completely different to an Interceptor.
So is there a diff in the middle like there would be on a Quattro?
There's a diff in the front. But yeah, basically you've got an extra subframe at the front, which is why the car's slightly longer. People say, oh, it's to put the extra vents on. No, it's not.
But they wouldn't have gone to quite that much trouble just to get an
Not
extra vent.
just to get an extra vents, but basically the front of the car is longer because of that diff assembly at the front.
Right.
And the second prop shaft's quite a thin prop shaft compared to the standard car prop shaft that goes to the back.
Right. Fantastic piece of engineering back in 1966, was it, when it came in?
Yeah, 66 was when it was launched. They made one that was a CV8.
It's quite a large, bulky assembly, isn't it? And I think I'm right in saying that because of that, they couldn't make left-hand drive versions, which obviously limited their sales.
Well,
quite
yeah,
drastically, 'cause they couldn't sell it in
it's
America.
the physical bulk. So the passenger seat is narrower than the driver's seat.
Right.
So
And that's because the
because
four-wheel
of
drive
all of the
stuff
four-wheel
encroaches
drive.
into the passenger foot.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. So you couldn't really left-hand drive it.
And that, hence that meant they couldn't sell it in the States, which obviously was a bit of a financial blow.
Yes, and also they had lots of problems with the hubs in the early days. So arguably, you probably wouldn't have wanted the warranty claims in the States either.
No.
Because most of them had the Mark 1, the early Mark 1s had hub problems, and if you look in the factory records, they all went back for this hub issue.
So they ended up making about 320?
320, yeah, of which the majority were Mark 1s, so there's just over 200 Mark 1s made, I think. Then there's just under 100 Mark 2s, and then there's, I think, something like 15 Mark 3s made.
Right, I didn't realise it was a Mark 3.
Yeah.
What was the difference with that then? Because the front end styling's different on the Mark 2 from the Mark 1, isn't it?
Correct. I prefer the styling of the Mark 2. Arguably, I prefer the nose of the Mark 2 and the inside of the Mark 1, but you can't have it both ways.
First world problems.
It is a first world problem.
How long you had this car and what sort of nick was it in when you got it?
When I bought the car, I bought it on eBay, drunk,
Excellent.
which is how you should buy a car.
Absolutely.
And I kind of went to bed because it was before Snipe Engines, because I bought this in 2006.
Right.
And I had a couple of glasses of wine, and I think I said I'd pay something like 4,300 quid or something. And I woke up the next morning, I came downstairs, and I'd got the car for 4,600 quid.
Right.
I was like, how on earth could that happen?
Yeah.
And I looked back in my drunken stupor, and I'd bid 43,000 quid for this car.
That could have been quite a conversation.
Quite a
over breakfast with
conversation.
your wife, couldn't it?
Yes, absolutely. But so it kind of worked out all right. But it was a very bent Jensen. So it was a very bent Jensen that had just been restored
Oh, and crashed.
and crashed.
Right.
Yeah. So apparently the people who restored it for the original, or for its longest ever owner, was a footballer and his wife, and they owned it for the majority of the car's life.
What, from new?
I think they bought it in something like 78.
Right.
and they owned it till about 2004. He died. They kept the car. The family kept the car, and they always wanted it done up. And they had the car done up, and it was done up badly.
Right.
And the guy went bust, and they took it to another guy who then didn't quite finish things off properly. And the lady was very upset with it because she spent so much money, and the car just didn't work.
Right.
So she sold it, and the gentleman who bought it then subsequently started to do some of the niggles. And unfortunately, the throttle stuck open when it was being moved around his house, and it just drove itself into a tree. I bought the car from a restorer in Brighton who tried to do the car and really hadn't done much with it because it was very bent. So from the passenger's side front headlight to the driver's side scuttle, we had to replace everything,
Right.
including having to have new inner wings made, new chassis leg made. We had to find a new subframe because the subframe was bent for the diff. But that took many years. And of course, the bonnet was bent. So the bonnet's unique to an FF, as is the front panel, as is the balance. So you can buy many of the bits from Martin Roby's, but some of the bits that I didn't get, I had to have made.
So how long was this process?
So I bought it in 2006,
Yeah.
and it finally got finished for the London Concours in 2023.
Wow, that long. The colour scheme, tell me about the inspiration behind that.
By rights, the car shouldn't exist, so I thought I can customise it slightly.
Well, because it was so badly damaged.
Because it was so badly damaged, I thought, well, a little bit of customisation doesn't make me a bad person. It's pretty much always had Wolf-Ray slot mags on it.
That's what I was going to say. It's a car that's sort of, when new, like the price of a row,
Well, it was the
terraced
price.
houses.
No, it was the price of a whole row of terraced houses.
Yes, that's what I
the
mean,
whole bloody lot.
But it nonetheless essentially has Wolf-Ray slot mags on it.
Yes, but the Wolf-Ray slot mags were a good thing.
Well, I love them. They're my favourite wheel. But you saw Minis, Ford Capris, MGBs with them back in the day.
But don't forget there is a tie-in with GKN and Jensen.
Right.
So GKN owned Wolf-Ray.
Did they? I didn't know that.
The car when I bought it had a sort of browny red vinyl roof. I wanted rid of that. It was a flat red, so I think it was started life in beige. Then most of its life it was in bright yellow.
Right.
And then she painted it sort of a flatter version of what we have here.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, let's go for some candy apple red.
Yeah, but there's a reason for that, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. So if you look at the cars of yesteryear, there's a little Brook Bond, I think T.
So these are little cards that came free with tea bags back in the day.
Tea bags, yeah. And the one I remember most was the Jensen FF, and it was on the front cover. And for years I had the front cover, and I just thought that's one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Right.
And by the time I'd finished this, I'd worked out that inadvertently I'd done that to this car.
Right. So it wasn't even a conscious decision.
I don't think it was. No, it was just, sometimes like if you're familiar with NLP.
Yes.
So sometimes you might say, I want to do that.
That's neuro-linguistic programming. Isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Right.
Then it kind of becomes
It
so.
soaks in, yeah.
So I think that's probably how this car happened, by NLP.
Right. Okay. Well, on that
Bombshell.
philosophical note,
Yes.
shall we go for a drive?
Yes.
So this was the first road car with four-wheel drive.
Yeah.
But it had another first as well, didn't it? It's got special brakes.
It's got the Maxwell anti-lock braking system, which was to do with Lockheed and aircraft.
It's the first. So it's the first car with anti-lock brakes.
Yeah. Production car. Yeah.
Yeah. It's aircraft technology. Isn't it?
Yeah. Totally. There's not many people know how to rebuild them anymore.
That's not surprising.
But I've got a friend called Dave who does just that. He's probably one of the last people in the world to be able to do it.
It's an entirely mechanical system, isn't it? There's
Yeah.
no electronics involved.
Yeah. I mean, it was a pure luxury toy, but people used to use them regularly. So the first owner of this car, he owned Empire Stores,
Right.
and he used to tow his caravan and his speedboat with it.
Really?
Yeah. Which is why, if you look at the factory files, there's complaints from Jensen, and they're suggesting that he might have damaged the gearbox and the four-wheel drive assembly, primarily because he was towing his caravan and his trailer. I guess they were cutting-edge technology. So when you read all the factory files, they do have big warranty problems. But it does make a lovely noise, doesn't it?
Thanks, Kieran. Fantastic car.
pleasure.
Thanks for the trip. It was brilliant. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and share. You could do that as well. That'd be great.
We'll do that.
And if you really love us, and you really should, please consider supporting us on Patreon. It's time-consuming doing these videos, and if you support us on Patreon, that helps us to keep going. It starts from just £2 a month. I mean, what could you buy in there for £2?
Some crisps.
Some crisps.
There you go.
We're as cheap as a bag of crisps.
So should we go in and have some crisps?
Let's do that. Yeah. Thanks a lot. See you next time.